significant. What is most important, most striking, is the behavior of the Israeli army at the funeral. I mean, bad enough that they assassinated a journalist, but take a look. I'm sure you've seen the videos of the funeral where the IDF attacked the funeral, even attacked the pallbearers, made them drop the coffin. What was striking about that is how brazen it was. They simply don't care. They're one of the leading Israeli journalists, Gidon Levy, covers the West Bank, simply described it frankly. He said, IDF stormtroopers, his word, just attacked the funeral because they don't care. They are confident of US support, and therefore they'll do anything. Doesn't matter anymore. They're not trying to pretend. Now, there are other cases like the Supreme Court just ordering 1,000 Palestinian villagers to leave their homes because Israel wants to take them over for settlers. I mean, that Supreme Court judgment was given at midnight in the hope that people wouldn't notice it too much. But that's as bad as attacking the funeral. And they're doing it brazenly. It's much more than this. Long ago, Israel annexed the Syrian Golan Heights and what's called Jerusalem, actually an area about 5 times the size of Jerusalem, including many Arab villages. Israel annexed them in explicit violation of Security Council orders, ordering them not to do it. They didn't care, they did it. They assumed the United States would support it, which it did. And under Trump, the United States has formalized its support. It has now said, yes, you can annex any territory you want in violation of the Security Council orders. Well, in those circumstances, apparently Israel feels it can do just about anything. You read this morning's newspaper, this morning, they pretty much conceded that they just poisoned 2 Iranian nuclear scientists. What happens when somebody else does that? Well, when Israel does it, it's applauded in the United States. Why shouldn't they assassinate people they don't like? Okay? As long as the United States continues to back this and Europe sits by quietly and says, we don't care, Israel will simply become more and more brazen. And then comes another issue. You'll notice that in the Shirin Abu Akleh case, the US media really for the first time gave extensive exposés of the crime. CNN, Washington Post, New York Times. That's a change. Israel's actions are becoming so blatantly intolerable that even the mainstream media in the United States are beginning to complain about them. And in fact, if you look at polls, Israel's losing its support. If you go back 10 or 20 years, Israel was the darling of the liberal community. Not anymore. The liberal opinion is more supportive of Palestinian rights. Support for Israel in the United States has shifted to the far right. It's not in the Democratic Party. It's in the right wing of the Republican Party. Evangelical Christians, based on their theology of Second Coming, ultra-nationalists, military and security forces. That's the base of Israeli support. That could lead to a change in US policy. That's the most likely salvation of anything for the Palestinians. The rest of the world given up. This morning, you may have noticed that the leading Israeli writer, Aleph Bet Yehoshua, died. A lot of obituaries for him. including his final statements about how he had given up on an effort for a diplomatic settlement. Uh, it's important that he said that a couple of years ago. But it's a sign of the shift in Israel among more or less liberal opinion, which is now shrinking. It's becoming a very reactionary state. Today, again, another poll in Israel, and it's reported in Haaretz, a majority of Israelis don't want to have any Palestinian participate in any government. The country is becoming more racist, more reactionary. It's established close relations with Hungary, the outlier in the European Union, a liberal democracy. They have shared racist, anti-Muslim doctrines. They both feel aggrieved because they're not treated in a friendly fashion by Europe. And they both think they have every right to do what they want. So they're establishing a closer relation. That's part of the world system that's developing. Incidentally, just to add to that, I'm sure you followed the meeting in Hungary a couple of weeks ago of the reactionary neo-fascist elements in Europe. The leading participant in that was the American Conservative Political Action Committee. That's the core of the Republican Party. Former President Trump gave a glowing speech expressing his great admiration for Hungary's destruction of democracy and racist Christian nationalism. The Tucker Carlson, who's the leading television personality in the United States, simply worships Hungary. He gave a speech, done a major documentary on how wonderful Hungary is. Notice this is the United States. It's not Andorra. It's the most powerful country in human history. And these are the groups that are going to take Congress in November. They already have the Supreme Court. They're gearing up to block democratic procedures so that they can pick up the presidency in 2024. That means something for the world, for everyone in the world, a lot. It means we're on a course to disaster.
In Germany, it's a very difficult environment to talk about Israel and Palestine, to use terms like apartheid, because always the history of Germany is invoked into this discussion, drowning out any debate, discussion, discourse on this issue. For us, for example, in our organization, we have been accused for anti-Semitism for just reporting on Israeli apartheid, whether Amnesty International is reporting it or Human Rights Watch. How do you overcome this given the difficulty and past of Germany?
Well, Germany is a special case because of its utterly hideous record. So, yes, I can understand why there'd be special sensitivity about this in Germany. Nevertheless, we should be honest about it. For 50 years, Israel has been explicitly trying to use the Holocaust as a propaganda weapon to justify crushing the Palestinians, occupying Palestinian territory illegally, practically destroying Gaza, almost unlivable now. A million children can't even get potable water. Constant atrocities in the West Bank. You read journalists like Gidon Levy, Amira Haas, others, daily reports. They think they can get away with this as long as they can wave the Holocaust in front of people's eyes. I should say this is explicit. So if you go back to 1973, Abba Eban, leading Israeli statesman, highly respected, wrote a very interesting article in the more liberal Jewish journal in the United States, Congress Weekly. In this article, he said, the duty of American Jews is to show that any criticism of what he called Zionism, meaning policies of his government, any criticism is either anti-Semitism, if it comes from non-Jews, or neurotic self-hatred, if it comes from Jews. He actually mentioned two people. I was proud to be one of them. The other was I.F. Stone, committed Zionist, critical of Israel, therefore a neurotic, self-hating Jew. Okay, that makes 100%. Nobody can criticize Israel. It's explicit, perfectly explicit. It's interesting if you take a look at the famous definition of anti-Semitism by Ihura. It's used all the time. According to that, Abba Eban is a leading anti-Semite because one of their criteria for anti-Semitism is the claim that all Jews have to be associated with Israel. So Abba Eban is one of the leading anti-Semites in the world. The Israeli Supreme Court is totally anti-Semitic. They've stated that Israel is the sovereign state of the Jewish people, like it's my sovereign state living in the United States, not the sovereign state of its population. Perfect example of anti-Semitism by the standard definition. Well, again, I can understand hesitancy in Germany to talk too much about that, but they shouldn't fall for it. And everywhere else